Yep.
Sound in tune?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Pod snack. Pod snack. Pod snack. Yeah. Yeah.
A few choice words by Fueled by Choice.
This is A Few Choice Words, the Fueled by Choice pod snack. A tasty morsel of inspiration and stories of choice from some of our favorite humans in the world.
A few choice words.
So you're going on vacation?
Yep. Going to Florida.
Nice.
Finally. Dude, it's crazy because I'm trying to think of the last time I've been out of town. Like out of state, out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you've traveled. You've been, all right, so you just got back from Mexico.
Yep.
And then where before that?
Did Mexico, well, I was in South Carolina playing golf with my dad, my uncle, right before that. And then I also went to Dewey Beach, Delaware with my family over the summer. So, and then also Asheville in October with a friend, went hiking and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The epic photo.
Yep. So one of the most annoying parts about that trip is I looked up some of the tallest peaks east of the Mississippi, and one of them is Mount Mitchell. It's like 7,500 feet. And so we planned this hike out. It's like an hour drive from Asheville. And my buddy Drew and I, we start this thing out. We know it's going to be about 3.5, 4 hours to get up, and then the same coming back down. So it is an ass kicker. Like it's like you're climbing steps to get to the top. And we get up there, we're super exhausted. And we like turn a corner to get to where the summit is. And there's a parking lot. And nothing is more like defeating than seeing a parking lot and knowing that people can just drive to the top and get out of their car and see the views. And also knowing that you have a 3-hour drive back or a 3-hour walk back down the mountain.
How long of a drive do you think it would be?
Probably 15 minutes.
15 minutes, yeah. Dude, that's crazy. Is it high? Is it so high where you kind of start to lose your breath a little bit?
No, it's nothing really like that. I mean, Asheville's pretty, I think it's a little bit of elevation, but it's nothing like the Rockies where you're going to go up to 13,000, 14,000 feet. So,
dude, it was so crazy because I don't know if you remember when Taylor and I went out to Colorado for the trip in June, and we went up to Pikes Peak, and we took a 15-passenger van with a bunch of people, and we got there just in time where the guy was like, he's like, technically I'm not supposed to bring you up there, but what the hell? But we were in the back of the 15-passenger van, and if you can remember, you got the tiny windows in the back, and as we keep climbing up, man, I'm just like,
oh yeah, I'm
starting to lose my breath right now. Like it was kind of getting a little scary. Plus, being in the back of that van, I was like having a little traumatic memories of being in the band van.
Yeah. What was like, I mean, you've told me about some pretty sketchy drives through I-80 and everything with the band. Like, tell me and I've been I remember driving back from Chicago during a snowstorm way back in like 2010 when I was still in the band, and it being super scary for me because I've never rode with a trailer or anything, but dude, everybody was exhausted.
Let's explain that a little bit more. So that was like the end of what do we call them? Those weekends, the long weekends.
A weekend
warrior.
Yeah, we did a weekend warrior Midwest tour.
And we played, was at Reggie's? Yeah. And I think South Side Chicago. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, Drew, well, I'll let you explain that, but to kind of paint the picture, like everyone in the band was just wasted. Mm-hmm. Wasted. And Drew and I were in the front, and then
so what I remember is I had to work that night. So we were going to drive through the night and get home pretty much because, and get to your parents' house in Okemos and unload the stuff. And then I was going to drive home and then sleep because I had to work midnights. So that's exactly what we did. And we played the show for like 2 people.
Mike Rao was there.
And we got in the trailer and left. And I think probably everybody was drinking, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, back then that was considered like touring for us. You know,
Yep.
hey, we have 3 shows in a row.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna make the best of it, and if you're not driving, you know, you're having a good time.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, this is it. Like I'm going to stay sober. I need to be in a good state when I get home so that I can sleep and go and work and all that stuff. And I just remember I have a very specific memory of the snowstorm starting, and I'm driving the Yukon it was a Yukon, right?
Yeah. Rest in peace.
With the trailer. And I remember an on-ramp being really sketchy, and like everything, the trailer and the Yukon just kind of turning to a 45-degree angle. And you were, I think, in the passenger seat, and everybody else was passed out. And I was able to straighten it out, but I was like, whoa, I need to be careful here.
Yeah. It's those moments where you realize how precious life is.
Yes, absolutely.
It's funny. Speaking of the Yukon, before I-80 stories, that same Yukon, I don't know if you remember or if you ever witnessed it, but once the empty light turned on, you pretty much had less than 5. Well, you had about, we'll call it 5 minutes to get to a gas station before the car just.
Oh man, and
ran
those
out of gas.
things just chew through gas.
Oh yeah, and one night we were coming home. I believe it was Pooey. Pooey was on our 2nd episode. He was our first guest ever on the podcast. We were driving home from a show. And we were going to my parents' house again. This is the early days, obviously, where we'd stay at the parents' house. And the empty light came on, and we were like a mile away from the exit. And so I was like, well, I'm going to try to push it. And sure enough, you know, it's done. Like the car gives out, and we glide all the way right into the gas station, right into the pump.
Whoa.
It was the craziest thing, dude. It was like, you know, 2 or 3 in the morning. And we just got out. We were like hugging the Yukon. We're like, this car has been so good to us.
Thank you for getting us here.
Yeah, seriously. I think it was a tank. But yeah, I-80 in the wintertime is crazy because, you know, it's flat. There's not a lot of elevation on like on the most dangerous parts. It's that flat land because the water sits and it's hard to see the black ice. So you'll be driving and then you get these crazy winds that come through. So one time, we were on this winter tour with Bam Margera's band. It was called Bam Margera's Fuckface Unstoppable. It was a circus on wheels. And the drives were insane. You know, they're in a bus, and typically when a band has a bus, they don't really care how far away the drives are because they have a bus driver. But when you're a support band, you're following the bus. So you might have 3 overnight drives, and you don't know how long they are until you put them on the GPS. So we had to go from, I can't remember. I think it was Omaha to Billings, Montana. It was something like that. And
it's a bit of a stretch. Oh,
it was crazy. And James Lasky, our bass player, he drove it straight. It was 19 hours of driving. And that was the scariest drive ever because it was all I-80 or for a lot of it. And the winds were crazy. It was a snowstorm. He literally couldn't see ice, and it was just, you just knew, like. But yeah, that was one of the scariest drives, man. Like I-80 is no joke.
Yeah, the whiteout conditions too are crazy, and you see those videos like in the winter of the 100-car pileups and just people not being able to see, and you hit your brakes and you're totally helpless.
You're like you're free falling.
It's a crazy feeling.
Dude, it's so scary. Sure. Speaking of that, another funny band story. We were in the Rockies, and there was a random snowstorm that had happened, so they had closed off part of the highways, and we were kind of on this. We were rerouted to this other pass to go through, and there was essentially a traffic jam, but on an angle. So we're climbing this mountain. There's a semi in front of us. And they're like, hey, you know, if you got chains, put them on. So we're outside putting chains on. We're ready to go. And the semi starts fishtailing.
Oh, no.
Towards us. And it's going in reverse. And, you know, there's cars behind us and stuff. Yeah. But obviously, we're still here. And it's scary, man. When you see a huge truck that is just like, has no control. Ooh.
Yeah, your life flashes before your eyes.
So how's yoga teaching been going, man?
Ooh, yoga teaching. So It's been awesome. For me, it's been very healing in a way, in a sense that I can get out there and put some good vibes out into the world and help other people.
Yeah.
And even if the classes are small and somebody tells me that they feel so much better afterwards, it's a really good feeling. I think one of the coolest things about it is when I started teaching, I was very, very nervous. And you, just like when you're in a class, you get into kind of a flow state when you're teaching. And so you start out and your voice is shaky and you can feel your heart rate up and everything. And then
Stage fright.
eventually it gets easier and easier. And you kind of realize that even if you screw up, it doesn't really matter. And you're your biggest critic. So one of the coolest things to realize about it, and my friend Marielle told me this, she said, just take your ego out of it. Like, you are there as a guide to help people feel better and move their bodies and take something out of the class, and it's not about you. And so teaching has been a lesson in confidence for me, and also realizing that I don't need to have such a big ego about that and other things in life, and just do it and help people.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially what you say about the teaching part and losing the ego. Because when you think about teaching, it's just such like a fundamental human thing.
Yeah.
For people to want to teach someone else, but to have that confidence, that's super hard for. I mean, it's hard for anybody. I mean, I know it's hard for me to do. I guess like confidence, and then having the knowledge of everything you're doing. Even you might be skeptical on like, am I doing this? Maybe move perfectly? Is someone actually judging me? That like after the class, they're like, yeah, your downward dog wasn't quite the right degree.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, fuck it, like. You're teaching, you're providing, and that rules. And the classes I've done with you on Zoom have been awesome. Like, I've learned some new moves that I've never seen before.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that I've been practicing consistently for about 2 years, and there's a lot of stuff that I can't even really. I know the foundations and how to get into the poses properly and safely, but I can't necessarily be there in the front of the class demoing like a handstand at this point in my practice. So that's also a little bit of an ego hit as well. You just have to try to teach the fundamentals and keep it simple, I guess, and realize that the fact that you can't do the craziest, most off the wall poses as a teacher doesn't matter at all. So
yeah, sometimes the most simple directions are the most useful.
yeah.
I mean, I can speak firsthand, especially for yoga. Like some of the videos I've watched of just like early lessons and basics, it's the episodes I've loved the most are the ones where they're actually just talking about your hand placement, where they're like, stretch your hands out and then let them go a little bit.
Yeah.
And that I'm like, oh, so I was doing my hand thing the whole wrong, instead of like someone being like, all right, I'm gonna do a handstand real quick. Why don't you just why don't you just hold your plank for a while?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of with yoga in general and anything that has to do with alignment. I think the most important thing is to stack your joints. So I think a lot of people are really into looking flashy and kicking up into certain poses, and it's not necessarily the safest thing that you can do. And being aware of the fundamentals and the foundations of, you need to root down, press through your inner palms, and rebound up through your forearms, and stack your shoulders over your hips, and that's how you really get the most out of your poses. And it kind of, it takes you back to just the foundations of movement, which is something cool that I like, because we're all sitting in these chairs at work and hunched over looking at our phones. And it's just a reminder, like, draw your shoulders back, draw your shoulders away from the ears, like have an upright posture, reach through the crown of the head. All of those things that you start to do more and more and more, you can incorporate into your daily life. So, and I think about this a lot with yoga in general, and how protective we are of our cervical spine. And I remember just being on stage and we would headbang. Like we headbanged a lot. And remember how bad, you recently have felt this, but I just remember how bad the neck felt after a night of doing that. And you're so into the music, you don't realize it.
especially if you haven't done it in a while. Like, like anything, if you haven't lifted weights in a while and you go gung ho, because you remember, you're like, oh yeah, I can get on here and put 245s on and do this. And you're like, yeah, that wasn't a good idea. I feel like shit. But yes, I remember that last Wilson show. I first of all, headbanging for that long.
Yeah, you guys
never
played
done
like
before.
35 songs or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. But that next day, and on top of it, I slept on the couch, and no, I wasn't drunk. I couldn't make it to the bed. I gave up the bed for Taylor and her friend to have a good night's
that's
sleep.
so nice.
Yeah, yeah. But I woke up the next day, and I actually thought I had maybe slipped a disc in my neck or something, because I couldn't get up. I literally felt like I was stuck on the couch because it was so painful to lift my head. That was scary, man. That was the worst whiplash I ever got. And actually, a couple days later, I had a was it acupuncture with the needles? Yeah, I had an acupuncture appointment set up, first time ever. And I go in, and she's like, "Are you experiencing any pain?" I was like, "Oh yeah,
yeah."
I think I got whiplash. And she's like, "Were you in a car accident recently?" I was like, "No, I was in a heavy metal band, and I was headbanging quite a lot, and I think I got pretty severe whiplash from that." And yeah, it was intense. I don't know. Have you done acupuncture before?
No,
dude, it's insane. She was doing it's a Chinese practice, but she was lighting the needle, or she was heating it up.
Okay,
so I could feel the heat going through the needle, into the muscle. The relief was awesome, but in the moment when those needles go in, especially with that severe of pain, it was insane. But
there's a guy that works at Oakwood with me, Beaumont Dearborn, and he was a pretty top-notch surgeon in Russia.
Oh wow.
And so what happens when you travel to the US, you lose your medical license, or you keep your medical license, but you don't get one in the Americas. So you would have to go through medical school and a residency to get back to quote unquote the same status that you were in the other country. So he is a really good surgical assist. So he assists the surgeons in surgery and helps a lot with closing and everything, and does a great job. But one of the coolest stories that I heard from him is that he performed a gastrectomy under acupuncture as the anesthesia. So patient wasn't asleep. Patient didn't have a breathing tube. With the use of needles, they were able to divert pain to other areas of the body and perform a large surgery without the typical anesthesia that you would get in the US in a normal procedure. And they took out part of his stomach.
That's insane. What was the reasoning to doing that?
I am not sure. I have no idea.
I don't know, if I could just picture the patient being like, I want no anesthesiology. I just want to as natural as possible. And maybe there wasn't.
It seems insane to me.
It's so hard to comprehend. Could you imagine how scary that would be?
I know.
Laying there and being like,
yeah,
I could feel
pretty
much everything. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there was a point where it's like, hey, this hurts.
Yeah. Also, to touch on that point, a lot of people, when they hear that I do anesthesia, they're like, oh, I'm terrified of that. I'm like, why? They're like, well, there's a lot of people that are awake while they're actually out and they're under and they can feel everything. That is a complete BS thing that people say. And I think the statistics are 1 in 500,000 patients have some evidence of recall. And that might just be hearing a surgeon talking as they're going to sleep or whatever. They remember something from the surgery. But there's documentaries out there that make it seem like it's, and movies, fictional movies, that make it seem like it's a normal thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, once you put the scare into someone about anything, it's never about the 499,000 good ones. It's about that one bad one. Yeah. It reminds me of catastrophic event, or a plane crash versus there's thousands of car accidents that happen all the time, but one plane crash, it's everyone can be afraid of flying from that one crash. And I mean, it's scary. It's I feel like you have more sense of control with a vehicle than when you're sitting on a plane per se, because you're putting your fate in someone else's hands, I guess. But
when you watch Final Destination like I did probably 10 times when I was a teenager.
Hey, let's talk about the logging truck.
Okay, so it comes up. It comes up in life. I'm sure you've all experienced it. You're driving behind a logging truck, and if you've seen Final Destination, the first thing you're going to think about is all of those logs, basically tree trunks coming off of that truck.
Oh yeah, and if you've ever lived in Michigan, you know the log truck happens frequently.
Yeah, yeah,
You see it a lot.
I would love to interview or talk to a logging transport truck driver and see what his experience is on the road. Like if people are really reluctant to be right behind them, if they look at them when they pull up beside them, like what's the vibe like being a logging trucker?
Well, it is funny because before the log truck, it was for me the trucks that carry like gasoline and like ammonia or whatever, like because of Terminator.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Remember when he crashes the truck and like it's going everywhere? Like that always freaked me out being behind. I mean, you're not supposed to really drive behind those trucks anyway, but
well, on a happier note,
seriously.
So how have you felt about doing this podcast? You know, we're 5 episodes in plus an introduction. How do you feel?
I feel good. You know, we've talked before, like the podcast for me has been great because it's allowed me to kind of overcome a little bit of a social anxiety that I have. You know, every time we have an episode lined up, I'll be transparent. Like I think about it all day. It's kind of like, I'm like, oh man, what am I going to talk about? What am I talking about? And then once we start going, it just flows and it feels good. And you're such a good speaker that it's easy. You know, if we were both like that, I can't imagine what would happen, but I think that's the cool dynamic that we have, especially with the brand too, is, you know, having that, you know, was it ebb and flow per se, a yin and yang.
Yeah. The yin and the yang. But
altogether, I've loved it. It's been super satisfying. And it's something that we talked about doing for a long time before even launching the brand. And then we wanted to be a significant part of everything. And now we're here.
Yeah.
And we've talked to some really awesome people so far, and you know we're just going to continue to keep building it, and we're in the middle of a studio build right now, so when in the next couple months you'll probably, hopefully it'll sound a little better.
It should.
But, I mean, how about you?
I mean, I feel really good. I brought this up in one of my yoga classes the other day, and it's about just, you hear it in class, like set an intention for class, set something, have something that you can put out into the world for somebody else or yourself that's good, and maybe even take some gratitude for yourself. And I heard a quote on another podcast that was, setting an intention is putting in an order to the cosmic waitress.
Wow.
And that made so much sense to me. You put something out there, you put a mindset, you put a vision, you put happy thoughts into the world, you share stories, and things will come back to serve you, and they'll come back to serve other people the more and more you do it. And so I feel like doing the podcast, even though we don't have a large listenership at this point, there have been people that have reached out to me and said, man, that really helped me, or that made me feel so inspired, or it made me feel a little bit happier with the rest of my day, and just being here and being able to make my own choices and do healthy things. And hearing that from 1 or 2 people makes it all worth it, just like the yoga classes.
Definitely. And, you know, and being able to explain the brand and what we conceptualize of the brand is so much easier and fulfilling than trying to put it on a t-shirt.
It's interesting because you say that, and we launched last July pretty much. I mean, we started collecting interviews and stuff on a website around this time last year, but we launched everything for sure in July, and we still didn't really have a huge grasp on the identity of the brand and everything. And you were really pointed about throwing around the podcast, and it's a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun as well. And I think what it serves more than anything is sharing great stories and also building more of an identity for what we're trying to do. And even if it's not picture perfect, clear, and there's no exact niche for the people that we're trying to get this stuff out to, people are giving great feedback and they're getting on board and loving what we're doing. And that's an awesome thing. So
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And it's super cool. Remember, we just got the text from Kyle the other day. He's like, hey dudes, I just binged your entire, all your episodes.
yeah.
And he was really, I can't remember the exact words, but he was really influenced in a positive way. And it's so cool because how many times have you found a podcast and you binge it? And it's like, it's so cool to know that someone found ours and they did that. And that's one of the most fulfilling things about doing this on top of everything else is just knowing that, you know, maybe we'll never hear from the person who might have binged on it.
Yeah.
But they're out there and hopefully we can offer something to that person to make better choices in their life or be influenced to take baby steps towards something that they've always wanted to do.
And I think another cool thing is you and I personally are also learning on the fly. And when we have these conversations, we learn and we're able to take something from each interview and it helps us to be better people as well. So it's a really cool thing. And we have stuff to look forward to coming up this summer and this fall. Hopefully we can get out and start doing some events. We have this Great Cycle Challenge coming up in September. I think we're going to have a lot of riders interested in putting some miles on their bike to benefit kids' cancer research. So,
oh yeah, and you know, if for anyone who's heard about the Great Cycle Challenge, it's an open invite to be on our team. Like it doesn't cost anything. All it is, you know, there's no pressure to do the most miles. You can do, you know, 50, 100, 300, 1,000 if you want. But the idea is to bring a community of people together and we can raise money to fight kids' cancer.
Yeah. And I think what we'll do is just like last year, we had our own branded biking jerseys and they were made to order. We'll probably do a similar like co-branded thing with the Great Cycle Challenge and really work on a good logo and have like a uniform design that everybody really gets on board with. Maybe last names and numbers on them or something. We can make it happen.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. It's so nice. I got the new bike towards the end of the last challenge, but now I've got it decked out. I have a bell.
Yeah, nice.
Telling people, hey, get out of my way, man. And got a phone holder. It's important. Yeah, super nice. What else? I got like a little like this kind of fanny pack that hangs on there, and I got a new seat. Yeah, super important.
Seats are huge. You know, you gotta save your scrotum.
You gotta protect your ass.
You gotta protect your ass. Gotta protect your scrotum. So,
well, on that note, you know, protection's good.
Yeah,
you know, always consider it.
Yep.
And I mean, we thank you all for tuning into this episode. Where you know we kind of just decided to do this one on the fly. It's a beautiful night.
Yeah,
or a beautiful evening. The sun's still out, which rules. I loved it.
Yeah.
Some people hate this stuff that the sun.
No, I love it.
I love it.
Yep.
My dad was like, I can't go to sleep. I'm like, well, you don't wake up at 4 a.m.
And also don't go to sleep at like 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So.
Stuck in his ways. Yeah. Dude, you know, it's crazy. My dad hasn't used an alarm clock ever.
What?
Yeah. His body clock is pretty much give or take, go to bed at 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Give or take. He's up between 4:15 a.m. every single day.
I totally understand that. Like, trust me, I wake up sometimes at like 5:29, my alarm set for 5:30. So my body gets in that mindset, but everything has to be calculated out for me in the morning. Like the timing is perfect.
Yeah.
I couldn't just rely on myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. I've never really seen that in anybody else.
Yeah.
Like the consistency of it.
Well, you know, maybe we'll have Dave on here and we'll ask him about his circadian rhythm and how he sleeps and wakes and all that stuff.
Yep. And how his bike seat's treating him.
Yep. It's important.
All right, everybody.
Yeah. We will talk to you soon. Reach out if you want to join the Great Cycle Challenge. Send us your email. Send us any messages with feedback or whatever, or any ideas for guests on the podcast. We'd love to hear it.
Please review us on Apple. It helps a lot. Yep. We appreciate that. And if you don't mind, share the podcast.
Yes.
Later.
Bye.